Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are digging deep, I mean really deep, into the historical roots of corruption in the Romanian space. We're going to look at it not as a simple crime, but as a complex and honestly a deeply logical strategy for survival that was forged over centuries. So, let's just kick things off with a pretty provocative idea. What if, for hundreds of years, the thing we call corruption wasn't really a moral failing at all? What if it was the most rational response you could have to a deeply irrational system? A system where the state, the very thing meant to protect you, was actually your biggest threat. To get our heads around this, we can't think of corruption as just a bug in the system, an error. We have to see it as the original operating system. It was an adaptation, a way of life that developed in response to a predatory state where the most basic right of all, the right to own property, was never, ever guaranteed. Now, to piece this incredible story together, we're going to look at it through the eyes of four really important historians and thinkers. Each one gives us a different, absolutely crucial lens for understanding why this phenomenon is so deeply embedded in the culture. So, we've got Bogdan Bucher, who's going to show us the anarchy inside the state itself. Then there's Neagu Juvara, who gives us the big geopolitical picture. Constanța Vintilă-Ghițulescu will pull back the curtain on the social fabric, all about family and favors. And finally, Andrei Oistinu gets into the cultural mindset. Put them all together, and you start to see the whole complex picture. All right, so where does this all begin? Well, our story starts with the very structure of the state itself, especially during what's known as the Phanariot era. This was a time when the Romanian Principalities were living under the massive influence of the Ottoman Empire. And historian Neagu Juvara, he just nails it with his state as lease model. Think about it this way. The prince wasn't a leader in the way we think of one. He was more like an investor who had basically rented the country. And you better believe he was going to squeeze every last drop of profit out of it before his short-term lease was up. And this setup created this absolutely vicious top-down cycle of extraction. The prince buys the throne, right? So first things first, he's got to get his money back. How? He sells off government jobs to the highest bidders. And then those officials, well, they had to get their investment back by shaking down the population. And because nobody's reign was secure, this whole thing had to happen at lightning speed. Historian Bogdan Bucher has a perfect word for this state of institutional chaos, devalmashia. It describes a total blurring of the lines, a world where the idea of a public treasury being separate from the ruler's personal wallet, it just didn't exist. The state was the prey, and pretty much everyone in power was a predator. And get this, because this is the crucial part. In a system like that, you didn't get punished for being corrupt. No, you got punished for losing favor with the people in power. Stealing was basically part of the job description. The real crime was getting caught without a powerful friend to protect you. Okay, so if the state itself is the biggest danger out there, where on earth could you turn for safety, for any kind of security? Well, the answer was pretty simple: your family. You see, as the social historian Constanța Vintilă-Ghițulescu explains, something we see as totally negative today, nepotism, was actually seen as a moral duty back then. I mean, a nobleman who didn't use his position to help out his relatives, he'd be seen as dishonorable, a traitor to his own blood. The clan, the family, that was the only institution you could actually trust. And this survival instinct, it even found a way to work hand in hand with religion. The sin of taking a bribe or extorting money, well, that could be negotiated. It was actually common practice to cleanse your ill-gotten fortune by making huge donations to the church. It created this very flexible moral code where, let's be honest, survival always came out on top. So all these behaviors we've talked about, the predatory state, relying on your family, they all stem from one single central vulnerability. And this right here is the absolute core of our argument, the deep insecurity of property itself. This slide shows the fundamental difference in how property was even understood. In the West, it was slowly becoming this inalienable right, something protected by law. But in the Romanian space, property wasn't a right. It was a conditional favor, a gift from a powerful ruler that could be taken away at any moment, for any reason, or for no reason at all. So what do you do? What do you do when your land, your house, your entire livelihood could be snatched away on a whim? You buy protection. Bribes and favors weren't just about getting rich. They were a necessary insurance policy, a way to try and secure your family's future in a world that had zero legal guarantees. So you have this deeply ingrained system. What happens when you try to just slap a bunch of modern Western laws on top of it all? Did the old system just vanish? Well, not exactly. Let's look at the Great Agrarian Reform of 1864. On paper, this was a fantastic law. The goal was noble: break up the old feudal system and create a whole new class of free peasant landowners. Sounds great, right? But in reality, the old operating system just found a new way to work. A method known as misuratoria strimba, or the crooked measurement, popped up everywhere. Basically, land surveyors were bribed by the old landowners to make sure the peasants got the worst, most useless plots of land, while they kept the good stuff. The new laws were completely hollowed out from the inside. And this is the perfect example of that classic trap of forms without substance. The country adopted all the external appearances of modern Europe: new laws, new courts, the whole shebang. But the underlying substance, those deep-seated survival instincts that were forged over centuries, they didn't go anywhere. And that brings us to the lasting and, let's face it, pretty uncomfortable legacy that this long history of insecurity has left behind. So what's the big takeaway here? It's pretty profound, actually. For centuries, the system didn't just tolerate corruption, it actively encouraged it. It made it the most logical, most effective way to protect yourself and your family from a power that was completely arbitrary. And that creates a cultural instinct for taking shortcuts, an instinct that is incredibly hard to erase, even when the laws on paper have changed. And this leaves us with a final, really challenging thought that connects this whole history right to our present day. Now, this isn't an excuse for corruption, but it is a vital explanation. When the system itself is the source of your insecurity, the line between what's a crime and what's survival is always going to be dangerously, dangerously blurred.